Hey, this is Shane with the Social Freedom Tribe. I wanted to hit you today with a video on what is intuition. And so I want to put a little neuroscience in here, and I also want to just give my own personal kind of opinions and experience with this question. And so from a neuroscience perspective, what I've noticed or what I've read is that basically there's this part of the body called, or part of the brain called the insula, and that's the brain-body connection part of the brain. It's kind of like when you do Vipassana meditation and you start really focusing on the left arm, then your insula basically creates this neural connection to the left arm that can just, when you want awareness on the arm, it just goes there quicker, and it kind of just has more general awareness of that place that you're putting your attention on. And so when you're trying to put your attention into your chest or any part of the body, the insula is the one that you're doing that through, and the more you do that, the more the insula gains that connection to those parts of the body, and it actually gets a lot stronger. Now what ends up happening is that what I read in The Art of Risk by Kate Sikel is basically the insula connects to the hippocampus, and it's a lot closer to the hippocampus. And what that means is, so the hippocampus is the part of the brain for memory, and so the insula is the brain-body connection. And another way of saying brain-body connection is the part of your brain that is aware of emotion. So the emotions might be a body sensation. That's what they're kind of described as. Like anger might be in the chest, fear might be in the stomach. Who knows where happiness is? Maybe it's like just kind of general. But the insula kind of like recognizes that intuitively, especially if you have a stronger brain-body connection. It kind of just knows what chemicals or whatever or hormones are in your body in the moment. So you might actually be influenced by these emotions because you're feeling all the stress, but you might not know it. But people with a strong brain-body connection and have a strong insula are more aware of that generally. Even if they're not consciously aware, they're kind of more unconsciously aware. And the reason I'm talking about this when it comes to intuition is because when that is connected to the hippocampus, the part of that holds the memories, basically you have memories attached to emotion. And so what ends up happening with that is basically you kind of go through life, and let's just say with socializing, because I think that's the main topic that people might be interested in this when it comes to social anxiety, is social intuition. And so when it comes to social intuition, basically you're kind of going through life and you might say something to somebody and there's a certain result that happens. So I might say hi, and there's all this kind of memory around it. How I say hi, what my body is doing, what's kind of in the environment, the context. The hippocampus is kind of memorizing a lot of this stuff. And then when you say hi, there's a certain result that happens. And let's say it's negative and you feel some kind of negative pain in your body, or it's positive and you feel some kind of positive just pleasure or enjoyment in your body. That'll happen through the insula, which is connected to the hippocampus, meaning that positive or negative emotion will be connected to that memory. And so what ends up happening is just through, I'm 28 now, so it's 28 years of just socializing or just different things happening. And so when I'm going through life and I'm like second by second kind of memorizing what I'm doing or what I'm saying, and then kind of like the emotional result that happens from that, then I get this more intuitive sense. And so what I mean by that is basically my mind it sees a situation, and then it looks into the hippocampus, it looks into all of the memories, and it starts doing pattern recognition. And so pattern recognition might say, hey, 75% of the time something positive happens, and it might notice that I have a certain inflection in my voice, or maybe I'm monotone and I'm blah, 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 blah. And then like something negative happens, like the person, maybe I'm on a date and I'm monotone and I'm talking like this and blah blah blah, and like the female just kind of gets disengaged, and I feel unattractive, or I feel just like some kind of pain. There's like the insula is like, oh, there's like this bad emotion attached to this memory of me talking like this, or something like that. So there's basically, you're going through life and you're getting all of these memories just by going through experiences, and those experiences and those memories are attached to certain emotions. And so when you're basically like, when you're talking to somebody, you might have this intuitive sense that something's about to happen, or might have an intuitive sense that you should say something or something like that. And it's kind of like, if you start trusting it and following it, you just like start noticing surprising results. And there's this whole like logical theory thing, like people that are just kind of asking you like, oh, what are you doing to get this girl or something like that. Maybe logical people are kind of asking you, how do you do a speech, how do you socialize, how do you do all this, and it just doesn't make sense to them, but it also doesn't like really make sense to you. You just kind of know. And so there's like this whole phrase of like be yourself thing that happens. And so really like when we reach into, it's just like these insights come, and it's because we have this pattern recognition part that's reaching into the memories and seeing the emotions, kind of like categorizing, here's all the negative stuff that happened, here's all the positive stuff. How do I get more of this positive stuff and less of this negative stuff? So you kind of say, hey, what's up? And then something negative happens, and you're like, that goes in the negative pile. Whatever patterns I find in the negative pile, I'm going to do less of. Whatever patterns I do in the positive side, I'm going to do more of. And so when you gain all of these experiences, these reference experiences, and you have a really strong sense of like brain-body connection and what you're feeling, then you have a better memory too. I mean, a lot of people, they go out to bars and they drink and like they just don't really remember. So they're really taking a toll on their intuition, because it's just, when you don't really remember as much, then it's hard to have an intuition if you don't have like really that much experience to draw from. And it's kind of like if somebody plays basketball for a long time, there's the person that like theoretically like plays basketball and like does these moves, but there's like the people that have like kind of done these moves and they kind of know that they're about to be blocked, and they don't really like, they're not like logically, oh, this equation of this person running at this speed or something like that. And they might move the basketball in a certain way and just kind of like, I feel like I'm going to be blocked. And it's like I feel like. It's like this intuitive sense of, I feel like I'm going to be blocked. And they might try something and it might work or not work. Like they might pump fake, or they might jump to the side and throw it or something like that. Or they might just pass it. And so they're kind of like gaining these reference experiences, and the more they gain this reference experience, the less they have to use the prefrontal cortex, like thinking mode. And the thinking mode is just super, super slow. So The Art of Risk by Kate Sikel talks about this, like where teenagers actually don't really rely on their insula experience part of the brain as much. They kind of just like think through everything. Even like the really dumb ideas, they kind of just like think, should I eat this cockroach? Should I jump off this bridge, or should I jump off this roof? And they kind of think through every decision. And so what ends up happening is there's a delay effect with that thinking. But when you use intuition, you are just faster. And you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, or there's no logical real reason. You might find some patterns, and then if you're smart enough and like really do the research, you might say, here's why I think this pattern is happening within me, or like why I think I'm doing this. But it's more of an intuitive feeling, because you have all this reference experience to draw from and all this emotion attached to it. And yeah, women have a stronger insula and have a stronger insula hippocampus connection in general, so they have a lot more, in general, I'm just speaking generally, women just have a lot more intuition when it comes to that, and guys are just kind of more mathematical, logical, in general, especially when people are born that way. But like, you can kind of gain more of an intuitive brain or gain more of a logical brain as we grow up. So the thing is that what I've noticed with intuition is that when I go out and just socialize a lot, I really gain this intuition. And when I start actually just trusting the intuition, some pretty crazy things happen. I just say things quicker. I'm a lot wittier. because I'm like kind of present to the moment and I'm kind of like taking it in, and then from that input, this like intuitive sense, like this intuitive output comes out. And so it's pretty incredible. And the more I go out and just try things, this is why I actually really love failure when it comes to socializing. It's just because it's this intense emotional reaction to something that you did that is being punished. So I really love socializing because actually like humans like really are helping each other out. Even if it's a woman is rejecting me or a guy is like doing something, there's like this sense of like we're all kind of helping each other out because we're seeing these attributes within each other that are like, I don't want to reward that and I want to reward that. And so like if you ever see somebody who just kind of like, you know, they're hungry, and let's say you're both at a restaurant and they're hungry and you're hungry, and when they get their food and you haven't gotten your food yet, they just kind of wait a while. Like they're not eating in front of you and like blah, 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 blah. They're just kind of waiting a while. There's a way that you want to reward them for that. And so I think that humans just kind of like see like these positive attributes in each other, and when we see that, we reward it. And when we see these negative things, we're like, I'm gonna punish you, not like a physical or thing or like a purpose conscious thing, but there's like a sense of like we don't want to reward these negative attributes of ourselves. And so we kind of like let loose and we get this negative criticism. It's kind of good to let it land, meaning like allow ourselves to feel that negative impact and then attach it to that pattern recognition of the memory, and just kind of like, oh, when I'm not fun, when I'm just kind of monotone, I don't get rewarded for that. And you know, like a lot of people are like theoretical, like I should get rewarded for blah blah blah, but it's like when you adapt to the actual reality around us, there's actually a beauty to it of not being rewarded for being monotone and not being rewarded for not being fun, and just like, oh, work is or life is just a dread and you should just go through life like this and just kind of hate your life the whole time. It's great that that person is not rewarded for that socially, because then they get all these negative emotions attached to that pattern of being, and then when they finally like start tapping into their intuitive selves, then they're like, oh, that part of the being, that pattern of being is not rewarded, and this is rewarded. So to me, intuition is going through something, kind of trying a lot of different things. So I like to experiment with things. I read a lot of books, and I love books, but I don't just stop at taking it for what it is. So what I do is I read a book and I get some like logical thing, and it's telling me this is how life works and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I'll take notes on it and I'll like try to remember it and stuff. But at the same time, instead of just, oh, I have the theory, now act from the theory, I'm actually taking that theory and I try to come up with some experiments that I can play in real life that I can test one way and then test the other. Let's try to come up with some examples. So with flow state, let's say that having fun gets us into a flow state. So I'm like, cool, let me test that. Let me try to get into a flow state without having fun. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna smile, I'm not gonna blah blah blah, and I'm just gonna try it. And like, I kind of notice that it's hard to get into a flow state. And then I try to get myself to have fun, and maybe I'll play some music and I'll dance some and then I'll take some notes and like, oh, how could I have fun with this? And then I start to get into a flow state, and I've kind of like tested that out, and now I have this real life experience that I've been through that has these certain emotions to it. So I like letting things land. You know, like it's like the authentic relating community likes to say, like let that land, where basically you're kind of taking the impact of it, you're taking the consequences of it. I think a really great leader is doing their, like what I like to call best guess leadership, where they're not necessarily leading from like, I know exactly what to do. They're kind of taking their best guess, and like they're trying to help everybody, including themselves, and they're just taking their best guess, but they also allow and accept the consequences of that. So they take on the impact of that. So maybe somebody gets hurt, maybe somebody dies. Maybe something really bad happens to themselves. Maybe they lose an arm. I mean, I'm saying like really drastic things that could happen from this, but there's like an emotional impact of sadness, anger, or just some pain that just comes from that. And when we say, when I did this, or blah, 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 like when I did this, when this happened, I have this memory, this experience attached to this negative emotion, now I kind of like have a more built up intuition around how to lead. So like the people that are kind of leading and like, I'm doing my best, but I'm like using that as an excuse to not see the consequences. I'm gonna blame other people, like not blame myself. It's like the best leader will actually blame themselves, even if it's not their fault, because it's just like a way of like taking the impact and building our intuition. Um, and the same thing with positive stuff. Maybe not, maybe like allowing others to feel that, like rewarded for that, but also like feeling good within ourselves for other people feeling good. Like let's say I lead a group through something and just people are like really positively impacted. I really want to take time to allow that to feel good in my body, because helps me become a better leader, because I start attaching positive emotions to what I did or what I experienced, or these memories of what happened, so that my pattern recognition can just build this way of getting to the positive emotions, and especially if I put positive emotions to the right things. And so I think at first you have to kind of like just go through and see what gets positive reactions from people, and it's like, oh cool, like this goes towards the positive, because we're all kind of like training ourselves. And I think like a level above that is just really feeling into what we're doing that helps people. And so I think that's like more of an advanced level of this concept, where we're actually feeling positive or negative around what's happening for others and how we can influence that. I think that's really incredible, especially if you're leading people. And I feel really sad when I see leaders that are kind of uh, either shutting themselves off to the impact, whether it's positive impact or negative impact, or just kind of like not allowing criticisms or something like that, or just not even asking people for feedback in the way that it's like, what happened for you out there. Like maybe people are having like stoic faces because you have like a target market, or like the people that happen to come to your stuff just are stoic, but they're actually like, that was the best time of my life. It's just like takes hearing that, like hearing what's going on for people, not making assumptions on people. And when I see leaders that aren't really doing that, it's just kind of like really sad to me. And because it's an incredible way of growing your intuition. And so there's also a really great book on social intuition that's called The Emotional Life of Your Brain by Richard Davidson. Love this book. Really love this book. So he talks about the 6 emotional styles, and one of them is social intuition. So he talks about social intuition, and what he talks about is the best way of gaining this empathetic understanding of what's going on with people is actually by practicing compassion. And so it's kind of, he talks about compassion as this outward form of kind of like giving out emotions to people, and empathy as the return, so like the input of like understanding what's going on emotionally for people. And so what he talks about is basically when the empathy and compassion are actually the same parts of the brain. So the more you kind of practice compassion meditation and practice compassion, you actually get a better sense of empathy and better sense of what's going on for people. This is what he talks about. He does a lot of neuroscience stuff in it, and like a lot of brain scans and stuff like that. So he talks about that combined with meditation. I think it's a really, really incredible book. He talks about how to focus, how to get social intuition, how to get sensitivity to context, how to get like a brain-body connection. There's a lot of different things that he talks about, and like basically talks about how people are shaped from that. Incredible, incredible book. So back to like the social intuition thing. So when we're just kind of going through life and trying, it's like we have a sense of what we're feeling attached to these experiences, these memories, like the insula connected to the hippocampus, and we're also using our compassion and empathy to kind of sense what's going on for people and kind of like allow that to land and feel good so that we can like attune our intuition, then it's just like really incredible. And so I talked about this before in the video, earlier in the video, but it's really how I see failure or messing up. Messing up or getting failure is a way that we get this negative consequences, negative impact, negative emotions, and it just kind of builds our intuition. So I really love it when people kind of do their best guess leadership, just jump out there. And not to say like best guess leadership like, oh, I don't think I have the skills to lead this group through something, but I'm going to do it anyway because best guess leadership. Um, there's a way that could be good, but if you actually are taking not only risk with yourself, but risk through a lot of participants, I think it's really sad. So I don't want to kind of like tell people that they should just kind of jump out there and ask people to kind of rely on them when they don't actually feel like people should be relying on them. So there's like a really huge difference there, and I leave that up to you to decide if you are actually do feel like people can rely on you. But just talking about intuition and saying like if you're leading through a group and kind of like noticing the impact and taking it from there, I think it's really incredible leadership. And so like the way like failure is just when it's social and like there's no actual real bad things that are happening, but you feel like the negative emotions, it sucks when people try to avoid that, because that's the amazing growth opportunity right there of like, what did I do that does this? And not to say like every interaction is something like, okay, something negative, I felt negative, or I got rejected, or somebody gave me negative emotions, or I felt negative emotions, or whatever. Like what happened in that one incident? I'm talking about like large amounts, like thousands of incidences, like, and finding the patterns with that. Not taking like one interaction where you felt negative and like, okay, I need to like find universal truths from this one interaction. I'm talking about large amounts of socializing and then finding the patterns from that large pool of experiences. And so we should never really look into one person's response or reaction to us, because some people are just generally negative and some people are just generally positive. I think a lot of people just kind of give out compliments and a lot of people just give out criticisms, and it doesn't matter what you do, they're just going to criticize you, or it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to compliment you. Certain people just like that. However, there is like this whole, like, I feel like humans are trying to help each other by like not rewarding the bad habits and rewarding the good habits. And so what I've noticed is like when I go out sober to bars and just constantly socially interact, what I notice is that the patterns I build from that actually really help me in every area of life. And it's really incredible. Like I become better at reading, I become better at creating, I become better at working, I procrastinate less. There's like really incredible stuff that happens. And again, I'm not drinking, and I'm actually just finding the patterns that are healthy for both socializing. Like I'm taking socializing and I'm like, I wonder how, if I eat the right foods, how my socializing will be different. And so I'll eat the right foods for a while, and then I'll just notice that my social interactions get better and I feel better about that. And I'll also notice that when I work out, or when I play guitar, when I read, just different things, I like really healthy things, like I notice like when it helps me socialize, I get so happy about it, and I keep doing the healthy habits and not the unhealthy habits. Like when I'm able to focus by eating the right foods, by doing the right activities, I didn't watch TV all week, I just like practice different stuff, then I'm able to focus. I'm not doing different things that are holding my attention, and like I'm like zoning out. And like then when I'm going out, I'm like, can you hold my attention and like tell me positive things and give me this dopamine stimulation like that compliments me? It's like that's gonna be not rewarded, but like kind of like being able, like practicing all week, like putting positive emotions in my own body, like I'm using myself doing different activities, when I'm out and I'm like have this energy of like I'm able to be happy and just give out positive emotions, I get rewarded for that, and it's like really incredible, and it like really fuels this upward spiral for me. Upward spiral meaning when you do positive things and you're getting more and more results, and then like that helps you do better work, which helps you get better results. It's an upward spiral that just like gives you amazing stuff, as opposed to a negative spiral where everybody hates you more, and like that gives you less self-esteem, and like the less self-esteem makes you like do less work, which gives you more negative results and stuff like that. So there's like a way that like socializing sober and really memorize, like sober because like I can remember more, and like I can I have a better sense of attention, and I don't need things to kind of stimulate me, um, because I'm not like watching TV disengaging, like stuff like that. I'm able to like entertain myself by doing activities I love doing. I can put myself into a flow state through this process of just like socializing. Of I can put my if I can put myself in a flow state every single day, and like, oh, I'm gonna take notes on this book and like put myself into a flow state, then I can put myself into a flow state while out, while other people are kind of like not able to do that, and they're just like standing there like and they start freaking out. It's like I love how humans just kind of like reward all the positive traits, and what ends up happening is my intuition builds from that because I remember it, and then I find the patterns of those positive traits. Anyways, I hope you build a great social intuition from now on, and I hope you really see failure as not like failure, like oh, this is terrible, I need to avoid failure. Like it's good to avoid failure, but at the same time it's like not be afraid of failing. Like not being afraid of failing in the way that you don't start or you don't take action because you want to avoid failure. Taking action, whether you fail or whether you exceed, is going to build your social intuition. Anyways, love you guys. Have fun. Peace.